Merhaba, haftanın düşünce ve ifade özgürlüğü gündemini takip ettiğimiz programımızda bir kez daha karşınızdayız. Her zaman olduğu gibi önce haftaya ifade özgürlüğü haberleriyle başlayalım.
The investigation launched against the lawyers who read the Turkish Medical Association's statement, "War is a public health issue." During the Justice Watch statement held at the Istanbul courthouse in Çağlayan, resulted in non-prosecution 4 years later. In the verdict of non-prosecution of the prosecutor's office, it was stated assemblies and demonstration marches should not be banned based on an abstract danger to public order and public safety, and it should be determined whether the demonstrators exhibited any aggressive and threatening behavior.
Emine Şenyasar, who has been on a justice watch in front of the Urfa courthouse for 400 days, was summoned to testify for the 15th time on the charge of insulting because of her words about Justice and Development Party member İbrahim Halil Yıldız. Emine Şenyasar's wife and 2 sons were killed in Suruç on June 14, 2018 in the attack of Yıldız bodyguards and relatives. The Justice Watch, initiated by the family with a demand for an effective investigation, continues.
Journalist and writer Hasan Cemal, who was tried on charges of insulting the president based on 2 social media posts he made in 2016 and 2020, was acquitted in the first hearing.
The lawsuit filed by Boğaziçi University LGBTI+ Studies Club against its closure on February 1, upon the decree of the trustee rector, has been rejected. The court ruled that the fact that one of the club managers was on the defendants on the ongoing Kabe image lawsuit was sufficient justification for the club's closure.
The police attacked the People's Democratic Party members gathering in the district organization in Kadıköy to protest the detainment of many Kurdish politicians and elected officials within the scope of the new Kobani investigation. The gathering was initiated by the People's Democratic Party Istanbul provincial organization. Many party members were beaten and detained.
We Will Stop Femicides platform announced that a lawsuit was filed for termination of its associations with the allegation of conducting activities against the law and morality. The court accepted the different complaint petitions as evidence of strong criminal suspects, alleging that the platform destroys the family structure by ignoring the concept of the family under the guise of defending women's rights. Police records on associations directors that previously did not turn to a lawsuit were also included in the termination case file.
The Court of Cassation overturned the court decrees in which Republican People's Party chairman Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu was sentenced to pay compensation to President Erdogan and his relatives because of his statement regarding the Isle of Man documents. The Supreme Court said the scope of reasonable criticism should be considered wider due to the plaintiff president and his relatives, who are the target of criticism, and the position and recognition of other plaintiffs. The court further emphasized that the speeches in the case were made during the party group meeting under the roof of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey and were of political nature.
Kılıçdaroğlu has been sentenced to pay compensation on the grounds that he made denigrating and untrue accusations and insults targeting Erdogan and his relatives in the lawsuit filed due to the speech that included allegations that the president and his relatives made money transfer to the Isle of Man during the Republican People's Party group meeting on November 21, 2017. The result did not change in the case that was reopened after the appeal.
An investigation was launched regarding the News of Cumhuriyet daily correspondent Nagihan Yılkın, titled Corruption and Bribery Network Within Governorate Revealed, and a lawsuit of compensation of 400,000 Turkish liras was filed. Earlier, upon the complaint of Gaziantep Governor Davut Gül, access to the related news was blocked.
An investigation was launched against 40 people who were beaten and detained at Kadıköy Pier on their way to Taksim on March 8 to participate in the Feminist Night March, on the charge of participating in illegal meetings and demonstrations unarmed and not dispersing spontaneously despite a warning.
Legal action was initiated ex officio against People's Democratic Party Istanbul Parliament member Musa Piroğlu, who reacted to the police after their intervention in the protest organized in Kadıköy on April 12th against the police operation carried out on the grounds of the Kobani case and was knocked down on the grounds of insulting a public official.
Author Adil Okay's book, Talking Photographs, which consists of photographs and subphoto texts published 14 years ago, was not given to Necip Baysal, who was imprisoned in Kandra F-type prison number 2. Upon Baysal's objection to the penitentiary judge, it was decided that only one of the paintings would be covered up and handed to the prison.
6 Campus Watch activists who wanted to make a statement on Istiklal Street in Istanbul were detained over demanding that menstrual products be free in the face of the increasing cost of living.
In the 4th week of the Justice Watch, held by the relatives of the detainees in front of the Bakırköy courthouse, 2 mothers were beaten and detained. Parliament members Kenanoğlu and Özen, who called for the release of the detained mothers, held in a sit protest for a while in front of the courthouse.
In the lawsuit filed against the Urfa governorate ban on the banning of theatrical performances in Kurdish, the court stated that the discretion of the administration, which is in charge of ensuring the continuity of the state, should be wide, and rejected it. The court claimed that the theatre group Teatra Giananu and the Mesopotamia Cultural Center were affiliated with the PKK.
In the operation launched by the Diyarbakır Public Prosecutor's Office on the grounds of the 2022 Nevruz celebrations, at least 66 people, including journalists, Kurdish Khoybun Daily owner Kadri Esen and Ali Koçer, were detained.
A new investigation has been launched against the People's Liberation Party chairman Nurullah Ankut Efe with the same accusation due to the statement he made to testify within the scope of the investigation opened against him for insulting the president in his article titled "The Person Who Has Done the Most Harm to the Ummah in the 1,500 Years of Islamic History."
In the lawsuit filed against Özgür Gündem Daily, which was previously shut down with a statutory decree, a total of 20 years and 10 months of imprisonment sentenced against the newspaper owner Sancılı, editor-in-chief İnan Kızılkaya, editor-in-chief Eren Keskin, and editor-in-chief Sana Kaya, was upheld at the Court of Appeals on the charge of terrorist organization membership and making propaganda for a terrorist organization.
Silivri cezaevi akıl almaz işkence iddialarıyla gündemde. Gardiyanların 6 Nisan'da başlayan işkence ve kötü muamelesi sonucu bazı mahkumların topluca intihar ettiği öne sürüldü. Tutuklulardan ikisi yaşamını yitirdi. Yoğun bakımda olduğu iddia edilen tutuklu Halil Kesal'ın ailesiyle yaptığı son telefon görüşmesine dair ses kayıtları ortaya çıktı. Kesal ailesiyle yaptığı görüşmede gardiyanların koğuşlarına ip bıraktıklarını ve "asın kendinizi" dediklerini belirtiyor. Evrensel Gazetesi'nin haberine göre Ceza ve Tevkif Evleri Genel Müdürlüğü önce tamamen gerçek dışıdır. Söz konusu iddialar iyi niyetten uzak, kamuoyunda algı oluşturmaya yöneliktir diyerek iddiaları yalanladı. Ardından söz konusu cezaevinde bulunan Ferhan Yılmaz'ın hayatını kaybettiği kesinleşti. 10 Nisan Pazar günü hastaneye kaldırılan Yılmaz'ın yakınları ölüm nedeninin kendilerine kalp krizi olarak açıklandığını, ancak Yılmaz'ın vücudunda işkence izleri bulunduğunu söyledi. Gelelim haftanın adliye mesailerine. İşte bu hafta bizim elimizin üstünde kalanlar.
The Media and Legal Studies Association has released its March 2022 Litigation Monitoring Report. According to the report, 277 people were prosecuted in 48 cases tracked in March. Among the 277 people on trial, there were 117 activists, 48 journalists, 38 students, 14 lawyers, 11 politicians, 8 writers, 5 artists, and 3 academics.
As stated in the report, 5 journalists, 4 writers, and 2 press workers were sentenced to 38 years, 9 months, and 6 months in prison in the trials held in March.
In the lawsuit filed against the Democratic Society Congress co-chair and former People's Democratic Party Hakkari Parliament member Leyla Güven on the charge of making propaganda for a terrorist organization because of the events she participated in, as well as the speeches she made at the events, the court scheduled the next hearing for June 6th in order for the prosecutor's office to present their opinion on the basis.
The lawsuit filed upon the complaint of the police against journalist Sibel Hürtaş, who was beaten and detained and was prevented from following the protest of borough station presidents in the Parliament garden to protest the multiple borough station law in Ankara, was adjourned to October 27 on the charge of resisting to prevent duty, will be held on October 27.
In the latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against journalist Deniz Yücel in Istanbul on the allegations of publicly insulting the Turkish nation, the state of the Republic of Turkey, and insulting the president, the court decided to wait for the return of the rogatory documents written for Yücel's defense and adjourn the case to September 29th.
The lawsuit filed against the former chief press consultant of the 11th President Abdullah Gül, Ahmet Sever, will continue on October 6 on charges of insulting the president and insulting the public official due to his book.
The 200,000 Turkish liras of compensation lawsuit filed by Turkuaz Media Group official Serhat Albayrak against Evrensel Daily and the newspaper writer Ceren Sözeri due to her article "Who Made the Justice and Development Party Lose Votes?" will continue on October 5th.
In the 12th hearing of the lawsuit filed against People's Democratic Party Diyarbakır Provincial Organization Press Advisor Vedat Dağ on charges of threat, terrorist organization membership, and making propaganda of a terrorist organization, Dağ was sentenced to 6 years, 3 months of membership, 1 year, 6 months, and 22 days for propaganda, and 2 years and 6 months in prison for the threat.
At the latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against the Tarlabaşı Community Center Association by the Istanbul Governorate at the Istanbul 8th Civil Court of Peace, on the grounds that the purpose of the association has become impossible, the lawyers of the Ministry of Family and Social Services requested to be involved in the hearing. The next hearing will be held on September 29th.
2 separate lawsuits were filed against the Tarlabaşı Community Center, which has been working to solve the social and economic problems of the residents of Tarlabaşı since 2006, but has recently been the target of smear campaigns containing ethnic discrimination and hatred against LGBTQI+. Upon the request of the Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office, a closure case was filed against the association on the grounds of violating the law and opposing morality. The case will be held at Istanbul 18th Civil Court of First Instance on May 18.
Artist Genco Erkal was acquitted at the Istanbul 16th Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of insulting the president based on his Twitter posts.
The Second Penal Chamber of Bursa Regional Court of Justice sentenced former Republican People's Party Parliament member Mehmet Tüm to 11 months and 20 days in prison on the charge of insulting the president. Tüm was tried for the speeches he gave at 2 separate district congresses of the Republican People's Party in Balıkesir in 2017. He was acquitted before, but the case was moved to the appeal court upon the objection of Erdogan's lawyers.
The prosecution of Community House's Central Executive Board member Rüya Kurtuluş started at the Istanbul 48th Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of insulting the president due to the speech she gave on the prevention of the protest organized against Kanal Istanbul on September 17, 2021. The second hearing of the case was scheduled for July 7th.
6 students who were detained on September 22 during the protest against the dormitory problems and the high rent costs in Eskişehir were acquitted in the lawsuit filed against them at the Eskişehir 4th Criminal Court of First Instance, violating the law on meetings and demonstrations.
Haftayı kapatırken gazeteci Metin Cihan'ın TUGVA belgelerini yayınladığı için yargılandığı ve İzmir'de Boğaziçi'ne destek eyleminde gözaltına alınan öğrencilerin yargılandıkları davalar devam ediyordu. Böylece bir hafta daha böyle ardımızda kalmış oldu. Yetmedi diyenler için daha fazlası her zaman olduğu gibi internet sitemizde. Haftaya yeniden buluşuncaya dek hoşça kalın.